بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. As Sheikh Shawqi said, today is the gender day, and therefore I would like to introduce myself in a gender way also. Not like what Sheikh Shawqi have said, but of course that's my brief background, but I would like to introduce myself in a way that is pleasant to you, just to refresh the air. Of course, I will start with saying a male, son of a female and a male, a father and mother, alhamdulillah, having male and female brothers and sisters, married to a female, having male and female children, and also, and most importantly, working with CILE with male and female colleagues. So that's my brief introduction. The sitting, just feel comfortable. Can I just kindly ask the brothers to be in this side a little bit and the sisters in this side? This is the gender segregation. Just do whatever I say. I'll tell you why. Now we will start by playing a game. It's a very little, very short game, but very interesting. Okay, the brothers, are you ready? Take a sheet of paper. Sisters also. And no problem. Just take a sheet of paper and try to be together, because unfortunately the setup of the classroom is not convenient for such a training, but we'll do our best. I hope you understand this. Okay, now, just for the brothers and the sisters, both of you, just imagine that you are going to a camp and you need to prepare some stuff, your camping gear, okay? And then list a minimum of 5 camping gears that you need to make your camp successful, for both of you. Quickly, you have 2-3 minutes. 5. Okay. 1 minute left. Okay, brothers and sisters, time is over. Please stop writing. Just give me. Can you just collect the papers for the male side? Okay, can you collect the papers, please? This side. It's okay. Even one, it's okay, because we will have more here. It's okay, no problem. Just collect the papers here. Now, I will try to read from these papers.
This is the male thing.
Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to read from the papers without telling whether this is from the female side or the male side. Just to show you. Okay, we'll start. Assalamu alaikum, Doctor. We'll start with this one, the last one. Okay, the 5 gear stuff are water and a tent, and food, clothing, blankets, and so on and so forth. This one said knife, lighten, tent, TV set. Okay. Another one said knife, light, my wife, and the blanket. This one, I'm sorry. This one, without mentioning the name, of course, toiletries, everything to keep clean, sleeping bed, tent, and food, and water. Okay, I'll take another one randomly. I'm sorry, I can't read all, but just to let you know. Mattress, rope, yes, mattress, rope, plastic bag, knife, and so on and so forth. Yes. And this one, I'm sorry, this will be the last one, okay? Because we can't read all, just water, food, compass, and lighter, and a hat. Yes, a hat. Yes. Okay. Now, actually, oops. I will collect the papers later on. But what's your comment? I need one comment from the sisters and one comment from the brothers about this. Yes, about the stuff that mentioned right now. Can you see any difference between? Yes. What is the most important thing that the folks, all the brothers and sisters, the thing in common? Knife, okay. Water? Yes. But if you just to make them abstract more? Material? Survival, potential. And in brief, can you see any stereotyping between male and female here? No, because I didn't say this is from the sister's side, female, and this is from male side. I didn't say that. But I just, yes. Yes, exactly. We are in the track now when we say we take things seriously, because we are guided by the need and the objective. Without stereotyping, without saying that a male is better than a female, or a female is more powerful, more clever, more wise than male, and so on and so forth. So so we are guided really by the need, what we need to survive there in the camp, and also what we need so that we can make our camp successful and enjoyable. Is it clear? Thank you. Now coming to a hard one. Not a game, but a quiz. Before we start the discussion. Okay. Now I need you to take a sheet of paper and quickly, in less than 5 minutes, 5 minutes maximum, so that you try to answer this question, these questions. No. This time individually. Individually, okay? Take a sheet of paper. This is a serious exam, a serious test, okay? Just put your utmost effort to answer the questions as best as you can. Can you see properly the questions? There is a gender gap. Generally, it's well known, it's obvious between men and women. And there are lots of efforts to close that gap, in terms of income, in terms of education, in terms of health, in terms of many things. So just brainstorm some ideas how to make men and women more close, and the relationship is more healthy, and so on and so forth. So it's okay. Please stop writing now, and just write your name on the sheet of paper. Yes, because I want to know. Write your name.
That is not just.
All right, I accept that. Yeah, if you don't want to write your name, no problem. Just leave it blank.
Without name.
All right. Yes. Okay. Okay, now, don't hand over the paper to me, but just place it in a safe place until the end of the discussion. Now, we'll start. Now, at the moment, just forget about the quiz, okay? Because it's over. It's not a real quiz, but to show you something that you will realize it later on. A very important thing. Okay, so we'll start with the introduction. Comments on the title, of course. So we have three key words in this, of course, session. Number 1 is gender. Number 2 is issues. Number 3 is the Sharia, or Maqasid Sharia. Okay, what we really mean by gender, because just to make things clear from the very beginning, is that we will be talking about the cultural, religious, political, sociological, psychological aspects of the relationship between women and men, okay? So we are not interested in the biological or the physiological, aspects of these two genders, okay? So I hope this is clear. Why issues? Because of the time constraint and because of the objectives of this training. We cannot cover everything, but selected things, in my way or your way, doesn't matter, but at least those issues are representative and we live with them every now and then. And of course, they are very interesting because we need an answer, and also we need to tackle some issues And of course, we need to always work guided based on the objectives of the Sharia. So now the objectives of Sharia, of course, Islam is very wide. The teachings of Islam, alhamdulillah, the resources of Islam, the main sources of Islam, the Quran, the Sunnah, and so on and so forth, are too many. We are not going to talk about everything. This is very basic, and to put things right, from the very beginning, we are going to talk about Maqasid al-Sharia, not the Maqasid of human beings. Maqasid al-Sharia. And also, not Maqasid in general, because I know you had enough from the book. I assume, I was not here, but I assume that you had enough from Maqasid, from a theoretical perspective, from a methodological perspective. Alhamdulillah, Dr. Tariq, Dr. Mu'taz, Sheikh Shawqi, and Dr. Ghali, you have been, mashallah, exposed to many views and many approaches, many ideas, and you had the chance also to interact with them. So we are not going to repeat that one, but in a very brief manner, I will just focus on few very essential or very basic things that are very important, so that we can, start our discussion. In addition to this, of course, we will be more interested and focusing on applied maqasid, because it's important not to have only the theoretical part, but also to try to apply the maqasid theories and methodologies into gender studies or gender issues. Okay, so that's the title. The objectives, I'm hoping that I will achieve 3 objectives. Number 1 is really to clear some misconceptions about gender issues from a Maqasid perspective. And number 2 is also to emphasize on the applied aspect of Maqasid into the gender matters or issues. And finally, and ultimately, of course, it's al-amal, action. So we need to develop some commitment to really work within the Maqasid framework to address any gender issue. I hope we'll achieve this inshallah. The methodological guidelines are very important. I'm always emphasizing on this, and I like methodologies. So there are certain guidelines that I really would like to establish before I start. Number 1 is of course it's obvious, but it's sometimes confusing. That's the issue of mixing up Islam or the teachings of Islam with the Muslim culture. This is is a critical issue. So we need to make a clear distinction between Islam in terms of teachings, resources, and so on and so forth, and also the Muslim culture, that's the Muslim understanding and interaction, and also bringing into practice the teachings of Islam in different contexts in the Muslim world, all over the world. So that's number 1. Number 2, we should eliminate generally, because when we deal with the Sharia, al-Islamiyya, the Islamic Sharia, sometimes we are confused, and we may find many people or many authors, many researchers, they treat the Sharia as they treat the other man-made laws. So we have to consider this. There is something different here. And number 3, when we talk about ijtihad, we shouldn't talk about that is the text. It's very dangerous that we exercise some intellectual reasoning, that is ijtihad in any matter, and we consider it as final, as a text that is binding to all Muslims. This is wrong. Ijtihad, in whatever context, throughout the history, it's still ijtihad. So those who are dealing with the text, whether in the past or in the present or in the future, it's their effort into dealing with the text and not the text itself. So we'll have 2 things. 1 is direct access to the text, which is very important to exercise this intellectual reasoning into understanding the text, of course, with consideration of the rules and regulations. for example, in tafsir, in fiqh, in usul fiqh, in aqidah, and so on and so forth. And the second thing, which is we have a heritage that was developed by the early Muslims, and it's based on their ijtihad. So we shouldn't take it for granted, but we need to critically assess the heritage and then take the benefits and develop the areas that left unassessed or unexplored, and also admit that we had some problems in terms of understanding. So these are the most important methodological guidelines that I wanted to share with you, and hopefully it will help all of us, to go smoothly into the discussion. The general, of course, as I said at the beginning, I'm not going to repeat what my colleagues have said, and they are, of course, better than me, and they are specialized in the al-Maqasid, and their approach is profound, alhamdulillah. That's why the center, selected them to come and talk to you. But here we are going to just at least to make a clear, approach to the Maqasid. And of course, when we talk about the general objectives of the Maqasid, the two main things that I love, and I would like also that you love them, is Jalb al-Masalih and Dar al-Mafasid. You acquire anything good, anything beneficial, and also you try to avoid anything evil or anything harmful. These two guidelines, big guidelines of the objectives, the Sharia, the whole Sharia, and when you read carefully the Quran and Sunnah, you will feel like, yes, it's all about, avoiding evil and harm, and also bringing good and beneficial things to humanity, not only to the humanity, but also to anything, to the creatures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether, for example, animals, whether objectives, or whether the environment. So it's all there. Then the classification, we come to the classification of the Maqasid. I'm sure you have heard about the three classifications, which are al-Daruriyat, or al-Maqasid al-Daruriyya, the essential Maqasid, and the Maqasid al-Hajjiyya, the complementary Maqasid, complementary higher objectives of Sharia, and also the Tahsiniyat. Tahsiniyat, they are the refinement. We can call them the refinement. Things are refinement. What we are actually interested in basically are the essentials, because we cannot survive without observing and serving the essentials of the Sharia, which are, of course, here we talk about we find some scholars talking about the preservation of the 5 objectives of Sharia, like the preservation of deen, religion, the preservation of intellect, al-aql, of wealth, of progeny or offspring, or I like to call it family, as Ibn Ashur also called it, and also the, what's the 5th one? Life, intellect, property, or wealth. So these are the 5. Here we can stress one issue, 2 issues actually. One is that we find many scholars, they are talking about preservation, okay? But nowadays we have a new trend within the Islamic studies that focus more on justice, on rights, and so on and so forth. So regardless of whether we call it preservation or protection or rights or freedom and so on and so forth, the main thing is that these 5 things are very important. Even some scholars, they add to them the protection or the preservation of the ummah, the Muslim ummah. The second thing which I would like to also share with you is that terminologies about protecting or preserving the offspring, al-nasl, or the progeny. Ibn Ashur talked a lot about the family, not the progeny only, or the the offspring only. Why? Because to my understanding, he views the matter in a global way, that is all those offspring, relationship between men and women, all these things, can be put under a big heading, that is the family, or taking care of the family, which is the most important, institution in Islam and also in any human society. Okay, so now we move on. These are the misconceptions and the challenges here. These are actually some of the challenges, some of the misconceptions that many researchers, many people, media, also agencies, and so on and so forth, even from your friends, I'm sure you have heard about the nature of relationship between men and women in Islam is all about men oppressing women, is all about beating women, is all about divorce from one side only, is all about two female share for one male share in inheritance, is all about men marrying too many women and women are not having the right to marry, and so on and so forth. So, but basically, these misconceptions and others are all surrounding two things. One is of course from it's our problem, because my understanding that many authors and researchers, they mistakenly understood the text, whether the hadith or the Quran, because of unfortunately, some of the early Muslim scholars, particularly the Mufassirun and the Fuqaha, they misunderstood and they wrote some texts which I will read for you, some of them later on. They are really terrible. Those understandings and interpretations and comments, they are the one who contributed, I repeat, contributed to the misunderstanding and the phobia from the Islamic understanding of the gender issues. That's from within, and we have to acknowledge that. That's why I said from the very beginning, the ijtihad of the scholars, they are not sacred. It's their ijtihad. We respect. We are very unfortunate that they have fallen into some mistakes, but we shouldn't stay there. We have to move on, accept the self-criticism, and look forward to the future, and also do more efforts into rectifying the mistake and developing the proper understanding of the Islamic understanding of gender issues. That's number one. Number two, of course, the process of the so-called phobia from Islam, it's also not only generated or motivated by the misunderstandings or the very few, for example, wrong or mistakenly commented from the early scholars, but there is a machine, a system that is working for many reasons, religious, intellectual, political, and so on and so forth, to tarnish the image of Islam. And the easiest way is to say women are oppressed and subjugated, and so on and so forth. And men are superior, they are clever, they are intelligent, and they are the leaders, and women are vanished. So this is the picture that they are portraying on the issue of gender relationship. Yes, Orientalists, they have, of course, benefited from the heritage, the mistakes of, ijtihad, we call it ijtihad somehow, and of course they developed it and they put it in a nice way so that it will be convincing to others, and they generalize it so that to show that the whole Islam is astaghfirullah rubbish and is not relevant to our life. And their freedom, their systems, their ideologies is the most relevant one. Although we can see in many also contexts, in whether in the West or in Asia, that also other ideologies, they have done a lot also to oppress women, and also to make this gap widening between women and men. We'll come to that comment perhaps later on. Okay, so the qiwama. Of course, there is a clear injunction in the text. Sorry. Okay, I'll display that one. الرجال قوامون على النساء بما فضل الله بعضهم على بعض. This sentence is actually the ground based on which many scholars, the classical scholars in tafsir and some fuqaha, like for example Al-Imam al-Tabari, Ibn Kathir, and also Al-Qurtubi, and Ibn Arabi, and even Al-Zabakhshari, and to some extent Al-Razi also, they fall into the mistake of, Al-Rijal قوامون على النساء. It means they are the dominant, the controllers. But in fact, when you refer to the proper understanding, first of all, the issue is related to the context of preserving the balance and smoothness of the family life. And therefore, as an institution, it's quite similar to any other institutions, like the political institution, the economic institution, the religious, the health institutions. There must be somebody heading, and others are, with discussion, with negotiation, and so on and so forth. It's not a matter of, dominance of the man and subjugation of women, but rather it's a matter of, healthy relationship between a man and woman. And I actually got this picture to show you that this is even from, the outside of the Islamic, culture or Islamic tradition. It's all around love, openness, friendship. That's the healthy relationship. It's about faith, about understanding, about being open-minded, about compromise, about loyalty, and all this. And I think, to my understanding, in a very simple, so that because the time is pressuring us, this is the verse that really encompasses and includes all these aspects. That is as-sakina. لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةَ وَرَحْمَةَ. Love and compassion. It's within this framework that the relationship established by Islam is within the context of al-mawadda wal-rahmah. Yes, I'm coming to that one. Yes, thank you for reminding me. Yes, by the way, if there is a short comment, that's acceptable. But question, we'll leave it to later on, so that we will make the presentation. Because questions, you might find the answer later on. Okay, so this. Yes. Yes, it's here. The translation, yes.
No.
Yeah, we'll come to that one.
In English, the word.
Qiwama, yes. It's actually when you try to, there are many translations, but the one widely, recognized is the sustainer, and the protector. So these are or the head of the family. So these are the most, famous. Coming to the issue of فضل الله بعضكم على بعض. التفضيل, of course, was interpreted also as a preference or favoritism. That man, astaghfirullah, in this context, is favored by Allah or is put in a position better than a woman. Okay, and this is not the context. Because بما فضل الله به بعضكم على بعض. So the distinction here, they have men, it means men and women, or women and men, they have different qualities, and that's the different qualities. These are the women, they have qualities, and men have qualities, and that's why they differ from each other. So it's not from because the automatic perception of tafdeel goes straight away to men are better than women. But in fact, they have both qualities to, have to play their role in society. There are many interpretations, an endless process you can start, but it's all about making the relationship between men and women healthy. It's not a matter of superiority or subjugation or, struggling power and so on and so forth. This is the general maqsad, the general objective. And of course, it's applicable to the relationship between a husband and wife. Husband and wife, yes. They are a unit, they form a unit, whether they have children or not. They form a unit that is the family, and of course the nature of relationship there must be some order, who plays what, and also in which context, that is, a healthy context of compassion and also sakina and love. Fadl, actually, the term itself it's used not only in this context. It's used also in the context of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala selected prophets and distinguished them with certain abilities and so on and so forth. Like, for example, saying, yes, تلك الرسل فضلنا بعضهم على بعض. فضل الله بعضهم على بعض. Which means the messengers of Allah, of course, they have been distinguished, and the ulul azm min al-rusul, the 5 messengers, and so on and so forth. Al-fuqara also, the poor people, there are some categories. So the issue of tafdeel, it doesn't always mean that is better than. It means the different categories. Yes.
Qawamud is just a description.
Yes.
It was changed until a norm.
Yeah, this is the problem. Yes, exactly. Thank you very much. This is the issue that, yes, it's excellent. I mean, changing the pure and the clear, injunction from the Quran that is about the healthy relationship and organizing the family life for the family to be strong and survive, into a norm that is making man better than woman, man subjugating woman, and things like that. So can we move on, because we'll have time to discuss, but at least to have an idea. Dharb. Of course, I'm stereotyping a little bit, playing the game of. Anyhow, okay. So al-dharb. In the same ayah, actually, the previous verse, that is the issue of dharb is very, very, very critical. First of all, we shouldn't forget the context in which the issue of dharb, man beating a woman, that is in the context. In which context? It's clear. In which context? It's in the context when a dispute or a quarreling, a serious quarreling that happened between men and women, whereby a category a category of rebellious women is destroying the family. Is destroying the family by the way of her behavior, her comments, and so on and so forth. So we are not talking about all women. We are not talking about all families, because we are talking only about a category, الناشز. Please follow me carefully. The nashis, the woman which is rebellious, because the context is here about that, in which the dharb, the beating or hitting or striking or even disciplining, many translations of the word. So it's happening there. It's happening in the context of fixing a problem of a rebellious woman towards her family and her husband. Okay? Don't rush. Don't say that I'm endorsing beating. Okay, that's the context. So context. How many? Now the question: how many women, even from your close contacts and family members, are nashis? Tell me. Very, 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 very few, isn't it? Nashis, it means rebellious woman that is not, obeying and creating lots of problems and things like that. And therefore, if we have, let's say, 100 families or 100 families, we are talking perhaps about less than 5% of nashis. Because after nushuz, the problem is bigger, that's the divorce. So to fix the problem, that's why some of the Sharia scholars, they were really concerned about this, just to fix the problem before it escalates to divorce, which is destruction of the family. So therefore, even a matter of compromising a bit of, let's say, violence against women in order to protect the family and avoid divorce, which is more worse and more harmful to the family and society, is better than, this is not my logic, I'm explaining the logic of some scholars, okay? The scholars of the Mufassirun and the Fuqaha, the opinion of those who admitted and took the text from its appearance and clearly that, yes, man is allowed to beat or hit or strike or discipline his rebellious wife. Okay, that's their opinion. And of course, they enter into, a problem of explaining how and why they beat the woman. They said it's a light snap or slash or like this, or with a stick of siwak, or of course, one of the conditions is to avoid the face and to avoid breaking the bone, or and also to avoid the appearance, the parts that are apparent from a woman. Yes, I'm analyzing the issue of dharb, which is one of the misconceptions about this issue within the Islamic tradition, and then we'll come to this. Okay? Yes, just to explain to you. I need to explain this, what happened, and then what are the right explanations to my understanding. So the fuqaha and the mufassirun, they said, yes, in order to discipline that 5% or 3%, those who are destroying the family, which will affect the society, and the maqsad of Sharia is to protect the family, is no problem, compromise, beat, but a little bit, with a stick, not on the face, not on the body, not to break things, and lots of conditions. They put this. The question, yes, this is one of the even one of the complicated question is two things. One of them is this one: who is a najis? Of course, the fuqaha, they have lots of criteria. The one who is not obeying her husband in essential things, in relationship, and taking care of the children, taking care of the house. That's the norm. That's the norm of. And the second thing, of course, many things. And the second thing, which is also the limit of dharb. And amazingly, or unfortunately, some scholars are talking about numbers, about 20 times beating, and others are talking about 40 times beating. So they are trying even to figure out, how many times you need to beat your, rebellious wife so that you can fix her and bring her back to the normal life. This is unfortunate. Okay, now the question is the dharb, the beating or hitting, whatever you may call it, is it right now, and even according to your experience, is it the right method to really fix such a problem, and is it widely acceptable even in the Muslim life? Many they are saying no. I can even tell you that I found two scholars, one classic, one of the early Muslim scholars of tafsir, Ata ibn Abi Rabah. Yes, Ata, yes. Ata ibn Abi Rabah, he is the only one in the classical works of tafsir who said that dharb is forbidden. Rabah. He said, I found it in one of the books of tafsir, he said that beating is forbidden. The permission is there, but it's forbidden. And he did mention the reason why. He said because it will not lead to the objective that to rectify the problem, it may complicate the problem. Okay? And he gave an example, and he said also from another aspect or in another context, applying the hudud of Islam, the hudud for zina, for drinking alcoholic drinks, and so on and so forth. So even he said, for example, if there is an expedition, a Muslim are, at that time, of course, there were some expeditions, ghazawat, and if a Muslim man or a woman commit an offense that is punishable in the Sharia, you shouldn't apply the hudud. And they say for a simple reason, that is because applying that injunction or that rule may lead to a worse scenario, that is that men or women may jump to the clan of the enemies. So this is and of course, subhanallah, later on I found in Ibn Ashur also, Muhammad al-Tahir Ibn Ashur, in his tafsir, At-Tahrir wa Tanwir, he said also, yes, though beating, it's practicable. It's practiced in many cultures, including the Muslim culture, but it shouldn't be practiced. It shouldn't be practiced because it leads also to a worse case, and fundamentally, the relationship between men and women should always, whether in times of happiness or tension, should be always within the ma'ruf framework. That is the smooth relationship, though sometimes it's practically in the life context, it's proven not so easy. That's why you can see in some cases where divorce is there, you can see that it's power struggling. The man is trying to impose and the woman is trying to request and impose and things like that. Yes, it's a valid interpretation, and I said there are many interpretations, and even I found some scholars there saying, like somebody, for example, suddenly who fall down or collapse, and you just make like that, oh, wake up, wake up, wake up. It's like that. Obeying God. Of course, this is very important because the whole, unfortunately, many modern contexts of gender, issues or studies are centered around men. Thank you very much for drawing the attention to that. Any actions should be centered about God, about Allah, and fearing Allah, not fearing men or not fearing women. Okay, so that's if anything, any action is not a matter of revenge. It's not a matter of response and jahiliyyah, being ignorant of just striking back, or it's action and response. No, it's within the framework of obeying Allah. And then we come to what the sister have said, that Prophet ﷺ lived the whole of his life, he didn't strike women and children at all. So that's the framework, that's the model that we should follow. Okay, coming to the issue of here, just a bit of comments. That's just to say that, for example, we may perceive that, for example, in the United States, where women are enjoying lots of freedom, so it's every 9 seconds there is an abuse. And abuse is not only physical, but it's also psychological and spiritual. Domestic violence, the wider picture of violence occurs within the family. It's called domestic violence, and it's occurring regardless of religion or culture or level of education or level of the society, whether it's developed or not. It's happening and occurring everywhere. And of course, violence, we have to insist this. You may not be beaten, for example, or hit by your husband, but you might be exposed to a system of harassment, a system of destruction, psychological destruction. You are not good, everything is bad. If you cook something nice, everything is not nice. And many things. And you are always under the pressure from a husband that is complaining always from his wife, and therefore destroying her psychology, her mentality, and destroying the family. So violence is not only physical, it's also psychological. Yeah. Yes, please.
It could be the other way around.
No?
It could be the other way around.
Yes, excellent. I just a week ago. 2 weeks ago, I was listening to Al Jazeera English, and the reporter from Kurdistan, Iraq. I'm sorry to mention the country, but this is just to tell you that the real story is there. The Kurdistan Iraq, and it's as similar as many other societies, they are facing severe economic problems, where the traditional family that is composed from a husband and a wife, and the husband is taking care of all the sustenance, the nafaqah, and sponsoring the family. But because of the unemployment rate, because of the economic crisis, men are no more capable of providing their family with sustenance. Therefore, that reporter, she said, now I think we have about 2,000 cases of violence, not from men towards women, it's from women towards men, because men are no more capable of, supporting their families. And therefore, they are patient for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 1 year, then fed up. Situation won't work, and the tension will start, creating disputes and so on and so forth. And then they will come to, not all of them, of course, to a violent situation where women are, striking men and not the opposite. So this is now, and this again proves that the life circumstances are really very, very strong, whether in both directions. Wilaya and Qada, of course, there is a very big slogan when you hear all misconceptions about this, that women in Islam are not allowed to be the leader of the country or the judge. And they base this understanding based on a hadith that was لا يفلح قوم يولوا أمرهم امرأة. And the hadith is authentic hadith. It's hadith sahih. It was reported in Sahih al-Bukhari. But when you look into and of course many scholars of tafsir also, not many, some scholars of tafsir like Tabari, Ibn Kathir for example, and Al-Qurtubi and Ibn al-Arabi, they concluded that because of this hadith, women are not allowed to be appointed as, say, president or king or prime minister or judge and so on and so forth. Based on this is the only and single hadith and text that is basing on this one. Yes. So the hadith said, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was reported that Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, somebody reported to him that in Persia they appointed the daughter of the king Kisra so that she rules the whole country. And the comment from the Prophet ﷺ, he said that people who appointed a woman to rule them or to run their affairs, they are not successful. In fact, this is just, first of all, this is just a comment. It's not an order. There are many ways how we have to study, the texts, whether of hadith or Quran. The nature of this text is not an order from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam not to appoint women in position of power, whether judge or so on and so forth. Number one. Number two, it was like a blame for men, not for women, actually, because how many men in that country, which was an empire at that time, and none of them was confident enough to candidate himself to lead the country, and then they appointed a woman. Similarly, I know you're laughing. It's okay. Yeah. This is, I found it in one of the researchers, sister. It's true. It's a comment. It's a true comment, because there is no comment at all from Prophet ﷺ to not to appoint. And two, in the history of Egypt, after the Pharaoh, when he, of course, died with all his men and soldiers, the dumping in the water, of course, they died, all of them. So the Egyptians at that time also, it was said that they couldn't find a man to rule, so they appointed a woman. And the famous story also in the Quran, the queen of Yemen. Yes. And she was appointed, and in a very brief manner, there was a leader that he was very corrupt. In the modern terms, he's a dictator. And then the people of Yemen at that time, they were not able to, attack him or avoid him or replace him. So, and by the way, that man or that ruler, he was interested to the Queen Bilqis. He wanted to marry her, but she refused because he was not a good man. As simple as that. But when she needed to play that card, she indicated to him, because people, they were really suffering from this ruler. And then she thought twice. Is it possible right now to play a role that I protect my nation from this man? So she sent somebody to that ruler and told him, yes, she's okay, she's willing to get married to you. And then, of course, he was not, he didn't believe that, because he knew that she was refusing. And suddenly, he sent to her people, a group of delegation, and they asked her, are you sure you want to get married to the ruler? She said, yes, of course. He's a ruler, he's real, he's rich and he's powerful and this. And she started, So they went back to him and told him, yes, she agreed. And then he was very happy and got married. But she prepared a plan for that marriage to, I'm not saying you should use this. Okay, so at the first night, she prepared a table, a nice table, and lots of wine, there. And she started pouring the wine for him, pouring, until he collapsed and he's drunk, totally drunk. Then she killed him. Yes, so she beheaded his head, she killed him, and she showed the head. She invited the people and come and see. Of course, people, they were very happy. They thought that everything is all right, it's the wedding. And then she showed the body of the man and the head is over there. Oh, they were surprised. So they told her, why have you done this? And she said, yes, because, that's the request from you is to get rid of this man, and therefore I helped you. Now you are free. Go and choose the right ruler. And then the people, started thinking, what for we are thinking of a right and upright ruler? You are the best one. And therefore, that's the incident. They elected her at that night to rule the Yemen, and the rest of the story. Regardless whether the story is true or false, because I caught it actually from the tafsir books, the action is that woman is a wise woman. And therefore, even the hudhud, when he came back to Sulaiman, إني وجدت امرأة تملكهم ولها عرش عظيم. And then when Sulaiman, alayhi salam, Prophet Sulaiman started communicating with her regarding being obedient to Allah and converting into the straight path, she tested him. She didn't just like that go and throw herself to Sulaiman or fear of power or struggle or, be defiant. But she said, okay, I will test him with gifts and to know whether he is true messenger working for himself or working for God. Then, the story, she embraced, the faith, and she called her people to. Coming back to the issue of wilaya and khiwama, there is no clear injunction in Islam to prevent women from holding, position of power whatsoever. And you can see even 59 countries in the world, they have head of states. 59, it means 1/3 or even 40%, and day by day it's increasing. Can we say that all these people, in all these countries, millions of people are crazy? They don't think, they don't know what is right and what is wrong to elect a woman to be leading them. And we can see by experience also in many contexts nowadays that many women leaders are far better than many corrupt and dictator men leaders. Coming to you, sister. And then again here I caught also that lady, Caroline Walker, she was appointed just in 2015 as a High Court judge, and she swore in on the Quran. Actually, when I said, when I said, I just got an example of a woman leading a country and she was successful. Just a counter example to refute the notion that women are not and shouldn't be appointed to a position of power. Yeah, right. And even Ibn Ashur said that وَكَذَلِكَ يَفْعَلُونَ, it means she was experienced enough to know in the history that if kings or rulers, if they invade another country or society, of course there will be a total destruction. And we even in the modern history, nowadays in Syria, in Yemen, in Iraq, in a long time ago in Tunisia, Algeria, in the former, ex-colonial countries, they came to develop the countries, but unfortunately they are least developed. And even Ibn Ashur said that the hudhud himself, the hip-hop, when he came and reported the news to Sulaiman, إني وجدت, he was like, surprised. إني وجدت امرأة تملكهم. He was surprised. The statement itself shows that it was not well known and in the tradition of that region that a woman will or is ruling a country. So that's. But then Sulaiman alayhi salam also dealt with her in a very nice way. Yeah, generally it's perceived as the leader, general leader. Of course, the leaders are usually, they don't, go face to face and fight, and they are the one who plan, who support, who provide the means, who lead, who has the vision, and also the care for the mission, and so on and so forth. It's a general, approach of leadership, not individual action of a person, for example, fighting or refuting or teaching or gathering people to something, and so on and so forth. Okay, so so this shahada, of course, witnessing or testifying, of course, it's based on the fact that there is a text in the Quran that a woman, it's a witnessing of a man is equal to 2 women. And this is in brief, because unfortunately the time is really pressuring me. Almost half of the presentation, perhaps, I'm not so sure we'll do, but we'll sort it out. It's 1 man, testimony of man, or 2 women equal to 1 man. And this is actually, the context is clear in the Quran. It was restricted to the business transactions, and it's not witnessing before a judge. And the witnessing business transactions, even nowadays, as you can see in this photo, these 2 ladies, they are signing, the memorandum of understanding between Pakistan and the United States, and the title is to enhancing participation of women in business activities. That was in 2016. So this is just an example, So, and I quote for you also, this is a statement from one of the CEOs of a well-established company. She said, business is potentially hard-charging, male-dominated industries, family is, and it goes to say that family is really important for me. This is a statement of a woman leading one of the top, companies in the world. This is not to say that we are justifying a stereotype that is woman is less in terms of testifying, but just to explain the context and the reality. And you will see when I will provide you with some statistics, modern statistics, updated statistics about the gender gap. You will see that in terms of employment, in terms of income, there is a reality. Women is less involved in business until nowadays. We are not talking about 1400 years ago. We are talking about nowadays, and we are talking about also 176 years as the gender gap, website. They are estimating the time when the world, close this gap between men and women. It will take 176 years by the average, which means we, the generation, we will not witness that one. Allahu A'lam. Anyhow, so that's you can see even in this picture, the one who are signing 2 women, 2 ladies, and the one who are standing, they are the people, the business, they are the men. Okay, so this is the inheritance. Inheritance is also a big issue, because that is portrayed always that man is privileged, and of course the share of a male in Islam is always the double, and this is misguiding information. Misguiding information, because the basic philosophy of Islam in terms of the inheritance system is that the inheritance is all about the maqsad, or the objective of fair and justice distribution of wealth in the context of a family and also the family members. So that's the context, number 1. Number 2 is that everyone, whether a man or a woman, will inherit based on his or her circumstances. And one of the best books who addressed this issue is the book of Salah Sultan. May Allah, inshallah, protect him. He's in the prison now in Egypt. He wrote a very interesting book about inheritance in Islam. And in that book, he provided this, the resolution. Because when we say, oh, man is, we make some philosophies, you know, when we calculate, we found man is inheriting less than a woman. Because man is supporting the wife, supporting the daughter, supporting the mother, but a woman is not supporting anyone. But it's not obligated, it's not obliged, or it's not compulsory or mandatory to provide for children, for mother or sister and so on. But man is obliged to do so. Therefore, when we calculate it, we'll find that man is inheriting actually less than woman. But I don't want to enter into this. Even Sheikh Al-Qardawi, may Allah protect him, he did a very simple calculation. He said to establish this and to show that there is a reason. And he said a very simple example. He said, just imagine a man who earns 100 pound, or let's say euro, 100,000 euro. And he died, and he got a son and a daughter. So basically, the son will inherit how much from the 100? 75,000 euros. And the daughter, 25. Is this correct? He said yes. Okay. So now, the gentleman is going to get married. So what's his duties in getting married? This is the example of Sheikh Al-Qardawi. It's not my example. So he said, that man, he has to pay the mahar, the dowry, and the expenses of the wedding. It will cost him roughly 25,000. So 75?
One small correction. I think the male will inherit 66 and the woman 33. Because the technically happen in the
Yes.
So it's one, the woman has one half.
Yes. Okay. Jazakallah khair for the correction. Never mind. I'm not good at mathematics. Anyhow, the concept is there. Then he has to, when he will get married, so he has to pay the mahar, the expenses of the marriage, all the gold, everything, you know, and then his wealth will diminish at least 1/3 or one portion. Then that money actually, but where exactly his sister will get married, so she will get more money because her husband or her potential husband will give her the dowry, will give her the money, will gifts and things like that, so they are equal. So this example just to show that sometimes yes. But basically I'm in favor of this. In some circumstances you will find a woman inheriting more than a man. In some other circumstances, explained all in the Quran also, a woman is also inheriting as equal as man, and also in other circumstances which I mentioned just now, and it's obvious that was taken, you know, mistakenly, that's the rule, the general rule, but it's not. And also in some circumstances only women is inheriting, and this was explained in Salah Sultan's book Inheritance System in Islam. Yes, brother.
He's saying it's okay to give your children equal amount. Is that what he's saying?
No. In some circumstances, it depends on the circumstances of a man. No, it's not okay. It's not okay to say. No, just showing. Yes, please go ahead.
If you live in the States, the circumstances are different.
Yes.
So, if I have a son and a daughter,
Yeah.
I think I even want to favor the daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yeah.
So not only I want to give her half, I want to give them at least equal amount. I want to decide that.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
So that's in the, you are talking about the American system or any other systems? No, not the circumstances of the people in general, but the circumstances within the framework of inheritance in Islam. Thank you for drawing me to, so that we be accurate. We are not talking about the circumstances just like that, because there are different systems, different. Yeah. Yeah, the structure. Yes, it's about the structure and the death, who is, and the relation, the closeness of the relationship to the person who died, whether a man or a woman. You see, so this is the. It's not the general circumstances. Yeah. Okay. So and the issue listen to this. This is very important. You remember when we said at the beginning that when we talk about the Sharia, we are not talking exactly as we talk or discuss the man-made law. All these issues, and this one specifically, inheritance, by whom it was described accurately? It was by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It took it clearly to divide exactly in proportional way with the percentage, exact percentage, and all detailed especially in Surah An-Nisa, and it was also mentioned in other surah, but specifically in Surah An-Nisa, detailed in a very accurate manner, to the extent not only even many Muslim scholars, they don't even master the inheritance system. When you ask them, last week, 2 weeks ago, there was a professor from Qatar University, was interviewed by Al Jazeera, and alive. And somebody asked him, somebody called from Egypt, and asked him a question. It's very complicated question. So that man, though he was really well versed in the inheritance system, he told him, I'm sorry, you need to write it to me properly, and I will need to investigate so that I will answer you, because I really can't give you the answer on air like this, because really it needs careful consideration and study. This morning I allowed interaction during the presentation, so it took almost half an hour from my time, which is 1 hour and a half, so I'm taking less than that now, and the questions all together, so I'm hoping that inshallah things will be fine. But before I start, I have something very important to tell you. I forgot to tell you this morning. I prepared certificates of achievements, and I will distribute them in my way. I thought that the presentations will be at the end of this session. But seeing the fact that the setup of the whole discussion is in such a way that it was unexpected to me, so I changed the plan. So what I will do now, that from now on, think about a concise summary of my presentation. Concise summary can be based on the quiz that you have here this morning. You develop it, instead of presenting it in 2 minutes, for example, you just write 1 page, only 1 page, and submit it to me either after this or tomorrow morning, and I will study them. I will come out with, inshallah, a classification of your contributions, and you will get, inshallah, certificates. I have 9 certificates to be distributed. I prepared them secretly. Even Dr. Tariq doesn't know about that. Dr. Mawahib doesn't know that. Sheikh Shawqi doesn't know. But it's my privilege also to encourage you in such a way that at least you interact, you try to remember, you try to do something, and then that will be appreciated. So please take it seriously. I can accept as many as submissions, but only 9 certificates will be given away. I hope this is clear now. Now, the unfinished, presentation, it's actually very important, and I'm trying my best to go quickly and in brief as much as possible, so that I can finish, inshallah, within the time given to me. Of course, still with the misconceptions about gender in Islam, and of course, as you can see, this one is a sufaha, where there is a clear text in the Quran saying that وَلَا تُؤْتُوا السُّفَهَاءَ أَمْوَالَكُمْ. Don't give away your money to those who are foolish or immature, or those who cannot manage it. Unfortunately, in many tafsir, you find direct, pointing to as-sufaha, they are women. And even I found one of the mufassirin saying they are asfah as-sufaha, the worst of the worst, the safi of the safi, And this is, it's against Maqasid. When you read the Quran, you read the Hadith, and all this stuff, even the Arabic language, even the context of this verse, will come to a conclusion, this is not the case at all. So, yes, that's the... Now, coming to the issue of ta'addud or polygamy in Islam, that is men having 4 wives, this is, the misconception here is clear. Many, people have the idea that Islam force men to get married to at least to 4 women. And this is totally wrong. Totally wrong, because Islam even does not accept that marriage is compulsory and mandatory. This is just a logic. Is there anyone here, or have you ever heard that marriage is compulsory in Islam? That you must marry? It's strongly recommended, but not compulsory. And therefore, from here we can depart to explain also that polygamy is just a choice. And it's a choice between a man and a woman. If they agree and they are happy, what's the problem? And that's the permission is there. If it is used, that's okay. If it's not used, still okay. So, and you can see here in this picture, actually, this man looks like a king, you know, and it's a real story. He is Thomas Green. He is from the Mormon community in the United States. And of course, you know this religious community. He is married to 5 at that time in 2000, I think, 4. But he was planning to get the 6th one. But unfortunately, when they called him to the court because of his offending the American, law, so he stopped the process of getting the 6th one, though she was also 16 years only. And one of the problems with his wives, he combined a mother and her daughter together in the same marriage. And he got children from both of them. Yes, and of course, when he was brought to court, the court convicted him and imprisoned him for 5 years, but he got parole because of his circumstances, and he got married again after that. So yes, so polygamy it's practiced in many parts of the world. We shouldn't talk always about Islam and Muslims and Muslim communities only, but this is a phenomena that is available everywhere. Of course, the things forbidden is that polyandry, a woman marrying too many men, this is clearly forbidden. And the maqsad, the objective, is very obvious and very well established. That is for the lineage not to be mixed up, so that it will be always known. I'm sorry, sister, keep your question later on, inshallah. Quickly, this is also the statement that naqisatun aqlun wa din. There is always a slogan that women are less intelligent, or they have low potential in terms of intellect comparing to men, and also they are less in their religion, or their religion is diminishing and is not as equal as men. This is also a problem that we faced in our tradition, and also when you look into the whole system of Islam, of having these two complementary, components, a man and woman, and their role you can't find such a way of addressing issues that this category of society is less intelligent or less. There are many explanations. I will not, go into this now because of the time, but inshallah, I will send you the complete, analysis of this. This is an interesting, actually, photo that I picked it up from the internet, where 3 beautiful ladies from Brunei, they flew a Boeing 787 Dreamliner from Brunei Dar es Salaam to Saudi Arabia. And 3 of them, they were Muslims, as you can see the face and the name. And of course, driving even a car in such places is forbidden. But these ladies, they are driving, they are flying, an aircraft. Okay, so the gender game, this is, I'll leave it to you. You take it away, you practice it. Unfortunately, I didn't have the time to do such a game. It's very interesting, but you can take it as a homework. Now, gender case studies, we'll have 2 case studies quickly. In fact, I was planning to get you engaged and to talk about this and deliberate, and then we'll have some discussion and presentations. But due to the time constraint, unfortunately, we can't do that. But I want to tell you something very important about the CEDAW Convention. The CEDAW Convention, it was, endorsed by the U.S. General Assembly in 1979. Just imagine how many decades right now. And it has got 30 articles. The most important article with regards to gender, of course, it's all about gender, but these 2 articles are really critical, 16C and 16D. As you can see, 16C, it's all about equality between man and woman. and this also the equality within, especially with regards to taking care and also the custody of the children in case of divorce and so on and so forth. Now, I think, is there anybody here, or have you ever heard anybody who is, for example, against discrimination of women? Of course, no. I think with the Maqasid perspective, we have no problem with this. But, as it is said in the proverb, الشيطان يكمن في التفاصيل. The shaitan, the devil, is in the details. When you go deeper and try to understand what do they mean by equality, you have lots of problems. And even, my brothers and sisters, I can tell you, after 16 years of this convention, they met again, the world women leaders, they met again in China in September 1995, and they had a report. I will tell you a brief statement from that report later on when we talk about gender, gap. But what I caught from that report is that they legalized prostitution. The only opposition is the forced prostitution. So this is after 16 years of advancing, avoiding or eliminating all kinds of discrimination against women. And then, of course, when you read the list of those countries, those who are against, they have preservations on many articles of this convention, which got 30 articles. The list is huge. You find Switzerland, you find Germany, you find Australia, you find United States, you find the Muslim countries, the Arab countries. Every one of them has, is a reservation based on their understanding of equality or marriage law or inheritance law or adoption law. They have lots of privileges. When you read, it's pages and pages and pages. I can quote for you only one I can recall quickly. You know that Australia, of course, Australia is not, we cannot say that it's a Muslim, but it has, a preservation on women, equating women to a man in the battle, in war. The Australian law is against women in the front line fighting in any war. Can we say that the Australians are crazy and they are not in favor of the right of women's right and women's liberation? No, because they have a logic and they have their system, their own way, and so on and so forth. So that's the convention. It's endorsed long time ago, but it has, from the appearance, we have no problem. But when we get into the details, we'll face many problems, especially for Muslims and non-Muslims alike. So that's the roadmap generally. Just take 10 seconds to look at this roadmap. When I can detect, if I actually didn't bring my pointer, you can see empowerment, respect, resistance, equality, and equal pay, call for change, strong what? Marches against and so on. So it has got lots of ideology. I can easily say that is the whole, especially when you compare the CEDAW convention to the convention also against discrimination of race, between race and so on and so forth. So that's the brother who was asking, that's the Amina Wadoud was leading the prayers, mixed gender prayers in 2005 in the United States, Friday. Paradoxically, none of the mosques over there accepted the Amina Wadoud and her team to pray in the mosque. So an Anglican church accepted Amina Wadoud to pray there. And when you look into the history of Christianity, especially the Catholic history, you can find that a woman is a religious leader at all. Even the Pope. I looked into the name and pictures of the whole Pope, 266 popes from St. Peter to Pope Francis. Right now, none of them was a woman. And none of them also, and Dr. Tarek may correct me, was a black man also. None of them. 266. Why we are talking too much about women leading prayer in the Muslim things? By the way, even if, and approximately I'm addressing a little bit the question of our brother Anwar, you know, when you look into the conditions of imam in the Islamic tradition, you find lots of things. There is nothing that prevents a woman from praying. And in fact, it's well known in the Islamic tradition that a woman can lead a prayer within the woman contexts. But traditionally, it's not there to lead. Yeah. Sorry?
But not only in the women context.
Yeah, that's I'm talking about the legal tradition available, that she is allowed to lead the prayer in the in the women community in Islam. So, we will see, perhaps talking about equality and things like that, maybe one day you will see this sign in many bathrooms, many things that we don't care. It's neutral. Man or woman can enter. And most importantly, this is my actually conclusion in this picture. Because sometimes, you know, talking too much, the situation is really tense. There is a lot of tense and dispute, continuous dispute, and power struggle, power sharing. This is not the healthy mood. Not the healthy. We have to work into changing this circumstance, not to always, you know, struggling, but to look for the common things, look for the loopholes, and then try to tackle them, and then work together towards, you know, a better situation. The homosexuality, I think I don't have the time to play, but this is the video over there. If you can take it, you can watch it at home. It's only 4 minutes.
I have friends who are in gay and lesbian partnerships who've said to me, isn't it unfair that we don't have similar legal rights to inheritance, to visitation when one of the partners is ill, to health care benefits? And that's why I'm thinking about it, and my mind is open to taking some action that will address those elements of unfairness while respecting the traditional religious and civil institution of marriage.
The fact of the matter is we live in a free society, and freedom means freedom for everybody. We don't get to choose and shouldn't be able to choose and say, you get to live free, but you don't. And I think that means that people should be free to enter into any kind of relationship they want to enter into. It's really no one else's business in terms of trying to regulate or prohibit behavior in that regard. The fact of the matter, of course, is that matter is regulated by the states.
I'm not for gay marriage. I think marriage is a sacred institution between a man and a woman. And I appreciate the way the administration signed the Defense of Marriage Act. I'm going to be respectful for people who may disagree with me. I've had a record of doing so in the state of Texas. I've been a person that would have been called a uniter, not a divider, because I accept other people's points of view.
I agree with that, and I did support that law. But I think that we should find a way to allow some kind of civic unions. And I basically agree with Dick Cheney and Joe Lieberman. And I think the three of us have one view and the governor has another view.
I believe marriage is between a man and a woman. But I also believe that because we are the United States of America, we're a country with a great, unbelievable constitution with rights that we afford people, that you can't discriminate in the workplace. You can't discriminate in the rights that you afford people.
I believe that marriage is between a man and a woman, and so does John Kerry. I also believe there should be partnership benefits for gay and lesbian couples in long-term committed relationships. But we should not use the Constitution to divide this country. No state for the last 200 years has ever had to recognize another state's marriage. This is using the Constitution as a political tool. It's wrong.
Do you support civil unions or gay marriage?
I do not. I think that they impinge on the status and the sanctity of marriage between man and woman.
So you would want to take away someone's rights because you believe it's wrong?
I don't put that interpretation on my position, but I understand yours.
I will tell Americans straight up that I don't support defining marriage as anything but between one man and one woman, and I think through nuances we could go round and round about what that actually means, but I'm being as straight up with Americans as I can in my non-support for anything but a traditional definition of marriage.
Let's try to avoid nuance, Senator. Do you support gay marriage?
No, Barack Obama nor I support redefining from a civil side what constitutes marriage. We do not support that.
I do not favor marriage between people of the same gender, and I don't favor civil unions if they're identical to marriage other than by name. My view is that domestic partnership benefits, hospital visitation rights and the like are appropriate, but that the others are not.
I am absolutely comfortable with the fact that men marrying men, women marrying women, and heterosexual men and women marrying women all are entitled to the same exact rights, all the civil rights, all the civil liberties. And quite frankly, I don't see much of a distinction beyond that.
I've been going through an evolution on this issue. I've always been adamant that gay and lesbian Americans should be treated fairly and equally. At a certain point, I've just concluded that for me personally, it is important for me to go ahead and affirm that I think same-sex couples should be able to get married.
This video, actually, I searched many videos, but I wanted to show you, by displaying this video, unfortunately, just to talk about it, that all these presidential candidates and even vice presidents from 2000 and up to 2012 until now, also the issue of an agreement about homosexuality still there. They couldn't even come up with an agreement whether it's okay, we accept gay marriage or not. And they have many perspectives. Some of them, they address the issue from a clear, political agenda. Others, and therefore you find that they change their vision. Like, for example, specifically Joe Biden and Obama. At first they said, yes, we are against. Then later on they said, no, we are pro. It's because of election and political agenda. Of course, George W. Bush and Dick Cheney, they were against it. And Dick Cheney was with it, but when he joined George Bush, he said, no, I'm with George and against gay marriage. So, and the others also. Sarah Palin also, she said that clearly I'm against gay marriage. I'm pro the establishment of the family. Please, try to watch this video and think about it, how the issue of the gay marriage is really, complicated even in the high level from various perspectives, political, constitutional, and many, aspects is really complicated. Here we talk about the Qawm Lut, because when we think about this homosexuality issue, I think one of our references, we go back to the Quran and we find, subhanallah, I did really, a careful investigation in this matter, and I found out that all these verses and many others also, these are the most important one. That's the only qawm, the only people, the only community that was described by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the all-knowing, in one verse, ignorant, jahilin. In the other verse, mufsidin, corruptive. In another verse, bad and sinful, qawma su'. In another verse, fasiqeen, deviant. They deviated from the path. And in another verse, musrifeen. They went beyond the standard of life and living. Zalimin, they are also not just, they're unjust, and they are zalimin for themselves, for the society, and for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And finally, we find, this is my classification. They are not like this in the Quran, but this is my way of presenting it. And mujrimeen, finally, they were categorized as mujrimeen, criminals. And therefore, they deserve punishment. And you know what was their punishment? Of course you know. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pulled upside down the whole town. And also on top of that, they were stoned by clay, which is coming from fire. It was the worst, Allahu A'lam, to my understanding in the Quran, it's the worst description of a community and also the worst punishment for a community. That was from that time on, they established this pathway that is against. Okay, so quickly, I'm done, just a few minutes. Yes. So the statement from Beijing is actually I said it after 16 years from 79 to 1995. Of course, there were many other meetings, but in this specific meeting, the world leaders, the women world leaders, they all gathered in China, and of course they studied their progress, their achievement, their problems, and how to tackle them, and so on and so forth. And one of the statements, actually, I think in paragraph 5, they said, after all this while, we did a little bit of achievements, but we still have many, many problems to tackle, in fact, in the reality. As for the statistics, actually, the statistics with regard to narrowing down the gender gap, I found one survey made in the United States. They were asking whether women, they favor women or men in leadership, and the survey disclosed that 78% of the interviewees, they don't trust, unfortunately, this is the reality, they don't trust women leadership. 54% of this 75 clearly said no, and 24 they said, it's not good to ask this question, but okay, it's true. We accept that women, they do not have a role in leadership. They shouldn't have a role, or we don't trust them in a way. Now, the employment issue. Of course, we talk a lot about engagement of women in business. So the employment issue is still far away from bringing men equal to women. I think it's about 60%, more than 80%, about 86%. This is according to the World Economic Forum. It's about 86% of men are employed. I mean, among the community of men, about 24%. But the difference is there between the employment of women. It's only, I think, approaching 50 to 50 something from the whole women community are employed. In terms of income, this report also says that yearly income, the average between a man and a woman, it's almost half, approximately a little bit higher than half. So that's the situation. It's a huge situation. The gap is really big nowadays. And then it goes on, I will skip some of the statistics, to the time frame. Time frame to close this gap, according to one very well-established institution that is looking into closing the gender gap, they said it will take Europe 47 years to try to close the gap between women and men in many aspects, education, employment, and so on. But also it will take 476 years for the Middle Eastern women to be equated to men. Yes, the numbers are significant, but of course we can analyze the numbers. And most importantly, as I said this morning, they will, the average years or the time frame to really try to narrow down this gap, 176 years. So the whole 3, 4, 5, 6 generations, we may not see this one. Then this is just an assessment. Okay, coming to the strategies. Strategies, of course, quickly, and in a telegraph manner. Strategic, of course, when we think about developing a strategy to really narrow down the gap, we cannot close the gap. The gap will always be there, unfortunately, but at least narrowing down the gap, there must be an education strategy that really change the mentality, change the personality, and so on and so forth. There must be also a political agenda that political leaders has to be really convinced and also secure their support to this, and also the media to play a positive role in not stereotyping and developing all these stereotypes and so on and so forth. So these are, some of the strategies. Unfortunately, I don't have the time to go through them. Finally, It's a marathon. Okay, I would like to share with you, and I just read this one. This is my conclusion with the whole of this. Number one, we need to develop and encourage also effective methods of using applied maqasid in gender studies. The sister that asked about applied maqasid, yes, we really still acknowledge that we need more work and more efforts into this section. We should focus more on jalb al-masalih rather than dar al-mafasid, because the mood generally, even within the fiqh and the scholars, they are always talking about dar al-mafasid. How about the jalb al-masalih? Because jalb al-masalih is most important to us. So we shouldn't forget about jalb al-masalih. We have to put strategies and work towards acquisition of things, good things, and also beneficial things, rather than always looking and waiting to dar al-mafasid. I mean, avoiding evil. It's incumbent also to have the moral and intellectual courage to exercise self-criticism. As I said in the morning, we shouldn't be afraid of critically assess our heritage, and also to tackle the misconceptions and myths about gender objectively, free from any influence, religious, political, intellectual, whatever. We are all for the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women, but we should not fall into the mistake of creating also discrimination against men, because now we don't want this problem to happen. Just be objective and also work very hard towards the balance and justice. It's very important also to work in justice and fairness rather than gender equality and it's time also to work in terms of integrating gender studies in primary and secondary curriculum. What is existing in some in some countries, they have the sex education. They call it the sex education. But I think in a broader and more deep way, it should be the gender studies. We have to acknowledge that men and women are two essential components in society. They are distinct in many ways, but play complementary roles to fulfill their stewardship duties and attain Allah's pleasure. We need to refrain from violence, as it is the most destructive means in gender relations, and establish a relationship based on mutual respect, cooperation, complementarity, compassion, and dignity. That is the Quranic term of al-mawaddah wal-rahmah. Marriage is the best method to establish a family and the best means to achieve the two main objectives of marriage, that is the abstinence, al-iffa, and reproduction, al-injab. The family, and the last one, the family is the most important institution in the social order. That's why the Quran, Sunnah, and the Maqasid, they really care for the family. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Jazakumullah khair.